So when we really looked at this literature, one thing we noticed is you have these two contradictory narratives, but they're really making very different assumptions about why it is that employees use flexible work practices. On the one hand, this happy worker story is based on the ideas that flexible work practices are a key to employee productivity, whereas the signal of low commitment hypothesis is sort of grounded in the assumption that employees are using flexible work practices to facilitate their family lives or somehow accommodate their personal life responsibilities. So what we decided to do is sort of think about these different attributions that managers might be making as a way to kind of explain these contradictory findings, as a way to understand, when is it the case that flexible work practices have these positive versus negative implications.
I think our study is unique in that I'm bringing in more of an economics perspective, and Lisa's bringing a psychological perspective. And I think with this, she referenced signal of low commitment and attributions. These are kind of theories that were in these different domains. So signaling is typically an economics theory, and attributions is more in the psychology domain. And so we're able to kind of bring those two theories together to tell a more rich and cohesive story for why flexible work practices and in what conditions would lead to negative career or outcomes or positive career outcomes.
In some ways, our findings are actually very different than kind of the idea that's been out there in the literature but not tested, which is the notion that employees use flexible work practices, they are more productive, they achieve higher levels of career success. That's actually different than what we found was that controlling for employees' actual performance, when managers make these productivity attributions, right, they sort of assume they're more committed and give them higher levels of career success regardless of the employee's actual commitment or career success. So this really does suggest that employees need to be conscious about managing those perceptions with their managers. And something else that was very interesting about this was that for both productivity and personal life attributions, managers' perceptions about why employees were using flexible work practices were actually misaligned with why employees were actually using flexible work practices. So those things were not one and the same, and suggesting some real kind of misalignments between what managers think versus what employees are actually doing.
Yeah, and furthermore, employees were more likely to report that they used the practice for both work life and productivity, right? So they see these two things as synergistic, while the manager is much more likely to say it's either one or the other.
I think it suggests that from an employee standpoint, impression management with your manager is really important. So we would just recommend that when employees are kind of negotiating use of flexible work practices with their managers, that they really make that productivity case. They really highlight how using flexible work practices is going to enhance their performance on the job in order to avoid any potential negative attributions that the managers might be making.